Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Shop Adventures, my weekly excursion where I leave the homestead here at Athletic Geek HQ in search of my bounty of comics, action figures, graphic novels, collectibles, and all things in between. First things first, time to talk about what stood out from last week's bounty, and I mentioned how it's out of sight, out of mind. I mentioned how it's hard for me to keep up with it because it's just, it's doesn't come out on the most consistent basis, but Doomsday Clock, this was the best issue of it by far. There's going to be some slight spoilers here, so just be forewarned. But yeah, this was just an amazing issue with Dr. Manhattan kind of revisiting history, and the part that really got me was he goes back to the 30s where the shot of Action Comics #1 came from. It was just like, oh, it was just, you can say it's fan service, but it's just really, really well written. And I thought this was what we want. This is what everybody who, got into this story of the Watchmen being integrated into the proper DC universe. This is the kind of thing they wanted to see. And it was just really good. The Leviathan book was okay. I'm going to continue to read it, but it was, I'm just very interested to see where the book goes. That's, I've been, throughout Action, it's been very, very interesting. I'm really interested to see, what happens with Talia. It's kind of, she's captured, Clark, and I don't know if it'll end up being, one of the best things ever, but it's got me asking enough questions. It's got me just really interested to see how the story plays out from there. And I also really enjoyed Daredevil. Yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a minute, but Daredevil was good. Just Chip Zdarsky's just his runs still going really, really well, and I believe that Daredevil might. I don't want to jinx anything, but I believe this might be one of the most consistently good books as part of the bounty from here on out. And overall, it was just a good week for comics last week, at least in terms of what I picked up. Everything was at least decent. I did kind of have to skim through, what was tied into War of the Realms, because I'm not currently reading that. But everything was at least good that I picked up. And, yeah, well, hopefully this week's bounty brings some more good fortune like that. But time to go pick that up, and I'll see you when I get back here with this week's bounty. Hey everyone, I am back here at the homestead here at Athletic Geek HQ, and I've got a much, much larger bounty than I had last week, so let's get right to it. Start off with, I have Rocko's Modern Afterlife #3. Issue 1 rocked my world. Issue 2 was a little disappointing. And now we're just going to go with issue 3. I will concede that this is no pun intended, it has modernized, and it's bringing Rocko's modern life into new times. And it's not that the last issue was bad, it just wasn't as good as #1. And, we're at the, it's #3 of 4, so we'll see if it picks back, in my opinion, picks back up and concludes this still fun little comic storyline in that helps conclude it on a high note, in as high as issue 1 was. So, but still fun book. Rocko's Modern Afterlife #3. From there, we go to Savage Avengers #2. And I almost forgot about this book because, it doesn't come out every other week like other Marvel books do. But whenever I saw it as part of my pull list this week, I got really excited because I really enjoyed the first issue. We're going to have a confrontation between Wolverine and Conan, and who cannot like that? Jerry Dugan writing this book, and I enjoy what Jerry Dugan's able to write. I really enjoyed his Deadpool run, but this is a little bit more of a serious book, and he's a multifaceted writer. He can write something serious and kick-ass, but he can also write something very funny, and I feel like that trait is going to lend itself well throughout this a book such as this. So really excited to see where this story continues to go, and yeah. Savage Avengers #2. From there, speaking of Deadpool, we go to Deadpool number 13, and again, it's a War of the Realms tie-in, so while I'm going to read it, going to be kind of on the skimmy side of things, just because there's probably going to be, much like Thor and Avengers, there's going to be a lot that I'm not getting because I'm currently not reading this book. I will read War of the Realms when it goes to trade paperback. I promise you that. But just right now, it's just not, just wasn't really in the budget and wasn't able to really sign up for it. And, you know, that's another story for another time, especially when it comes to Marvel's practices with certain smaller comic shops and getting reorders, at least with the ones in my area. But yeah, I'll still skim through it, but right now it's just kind of, it's not something that's really gets me excited because the meat and potatoes of what is going on with the overarching story is just something that I'm not able to, that I'm not reading right now. So, but I'll still read it because you never know, you just never know. Deadpool number 13. And speaking of Wolverine, we go to Dead Man Logan, number 8. I love this book. You know, still continuing the home stretch of everything. But yeah, really enjoying the final story arc of the old Man Logan character being brought back into, or being brought into Marvel universe, the 616 universe, if you will. Yeah, just still a really, really good book. All the loose ends are really getting tied up. There's a lot of homages to the original Mark Millar Old Man Logan book. Things that he wrote are being, you know, made relevant in the Dead Man Logan story. So it's, you know, for a conclusion to a story arc, this is kind of how you do it. I mean, we still have, you know, this book and, you know, another 4 after this one. So, you know, you can never christen anything great until it actually happens. At least in my opinion, I've been burnt on that before. But, you know, so far so good. If you're gonna conclude a story, this is how you do it. And I'm still loving the ride up until the ride is over. So, Dead Man Logan number 8. And finally, to round out the Marvel portion of this bounty, we have Uncanny XMen number 19. And starting in July, they're getting ready to have a big X-Men event, which I've already signed up for, so I don't miss that. While I don't like event books, I mean, I went on a tirade on them and several other adventures. I'm definitely going to be reading that one because I feel like me, you know, with the X-Men being the number one thing that I like from Marvel, I need to make sure that I'm reading what could possibly, you know, change the status quo for the X-Men going forward, or it could just be a nothing cash grab book. You never know with event books, that's why I don't like them, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like everything that's going on Uncanny X-Men is just going to lead to what that book, 2 books I believe, is going to be all about. So, Uncanny X-Men's up and down, but, you know, lately it's been more ups than downs, so we'll see what Uncanny X-Men number 19 brings us. We now go to the DC portion of things, starting with a DC IDW crossover with Batman TMNT 3, issue number 2 of 6. I've loved these crossovers that they've done with Batman TMNT, and, you know, much like Dead Man Logan, we're seeing this is the final crossover that they'll be doing with those characters, and everything that's happened in the past is, you know, really getting tied up. Everything that might have been left loose in the previous 2 volumes of this crossover is getting taken care of, and for sets of characters that you wouldn't normally think would work well together, they work extremely well together, and I've enjoyed the previous 2. I enjoyed issue 1 of this part, and hopefully this very, very interesting and very, very well written set of crossover titles go out with a bang and not a whimper. Batman TMNT 3, issue 2. from there, staying on the same lines of Batman, we have Batman number 72, and it's the Bane storyline is continuing, and just it's it's good. It's not the best Batman I've ever read, but for all the grief I give Tom King, I'm not gonna just hate on him if he's still telling a good story, and that's what this story is. It's good. It's not, the next great chapter in Batman mythos, but it's not terrible. And I feel like I've said bad things about him enough, about some of his work enough, that I'll always give him some props when I can. So here's so far a good little Bane story with Batman 72. And while I'm thinking about it, I know this is the new bounty, not the old bounty. I do want to give a shout out on the way to the shop. I forgot about Last Night on Earth. I had that in last week's bounty. It was an interesting story. I love Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. The fact they're back together. It's a story. It's kind of confusing. I'm really looking forward to the next one because I want more of my questions answered. But like the prevailing, the best way to describe it is the prevailing fan theory of Batman being in Arkham and being Batman and all the villains being, figments of his imagination created in Arkham Asylum. That fan theory that many fan fiction stories have been written about. This is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo telling that story. More than likely, it's an Elseworlds book, but it was interesting. I liked the idea. I liked the first issue. I just got to see how it plays out before I really christen it. It could be a home run. This could be the next great. That could be the next great Batman story. Usually anything that comes from Snyder and Capullo is not a bad thing, but it could be something that just maybe was best left with fanfic. We don't know, but it did stand out, and before I didn't give it its props, I wanted just to make sure that I mentioned it, even though I forgot to on the way to the shop today. That being said, let's finish with the rest of this week's bounty, and we go to The Green Lantern, number 8 by Grant Morrison. And I mentioned, while it's not been my favorite Green Lantern story, and while you can't just rest on the laurels of respect for the character, I gotta mention one more time that Morrison does have a lot of respect for the character, because this cover and this story, he's teaming back up with Green Arrow, one of the most iconic team-ups in comics history. So, while this run wasn't as good as Vendetti's, Renegade, Green Lantern run, or Jeff Johns', opus of, and that just history-making run on Green Lantern, you can tell that Morrison is writing the story as a love letter to a character that he really likes. It doesn't always necessarily mean it's great, not to go off on a tangent, but like Dan Slott, he, with Superior Spider-Man, that was a love letter to everything he loved about Spider-Man, but just my personal opinion, I couldn't get into it. I didn't much care for it. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now with Green Lantern. The Green Lantern by Morrison, I like it, but my feelings on Superior Spider-Man are kind of what a lot of people I know, that's their feelings on this book. They understand the fact that Morrison loves his character, and this is his love letter to that character and its history. However, they don't feel it's his best work or the best work for the character. I think it's good, not great. I love Morrison. This is definitely not my favorite Morrison story. I love Green Lantern. It's definitely not my favorite Green Lantern story. But I dig it. It's good. I'm going to continue to read it. You can call me a blind fanboy. And I won't fight you on that. I might be blinded by my love of this character and the love of the person writing it, but I think it's a good enough story to stick on my list, and that's just me. So, Green Lantern, number 8. And finally, speaking of Scott Snyder, we have Justice League number 25, the prelude to the Year of the Villain. story arc, and yeah, just looking forward to seeing what the next chapter of Scott Snyder's run on Justice League brings us. Yeah, it seems, like they did something like this about 6 years ago with the Forever Evil, which I did enjoy. I know some people didn't enjoy Forever Evil, but I really liked it. So I'm wondering if this is going to be in a similar vein, and if it is in a similar vein, how are they going to differentiate it? It's hard to be completely original in comics nowadays, so I'd like to think that with as great of a writer as Scott Snyder is, he's going to, other than just like it's seeming like entitled that it's going to be the same type of story, I'd like to think he's going to differentiate it enough that it's not just like the same story with just a few words changed. I don't think that's what it's going to be, but it is a concern of mine as a comic fan. But like I said, I have enough faith in his writing that I think it will be good. Much like with the Last Night on Earth, I have faith that it will be good, but you just never know. And yep, we will see. We will see what the prelude to this this next big story arc will be. Justice League number 25. And that is it for me this week. Let me know what you picked up at your local comic shop in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and like to see us like it, please like, share, and subscribe. I have content not just from the world of comic books, from the world of pro wrestling, gaming, and all things geek culture. Be sure to go check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/athleticgeek89 for more content, including every Thursday, my collection comic of the week that is exclusive to my Facebook page. But other than that, I'm out. Y'all be cool.